Okay.
Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, to our third presentation of the day, which is presentation number 6 on the theme ICAO, Next Generation of Aviation Professionals, the NGAP, the strategies, best practices to attract and retain the next generation of aviation professionals in Africa. The presentation will be made by Mr. Estefanos Eyo, ICAO Eastern and Southern Africa Regional Office, Associate Regional Program Officer. Eyo has over 20 years of experience in civil aviation, especially in the areas of air transport policy and program management. Eyo has served in various senior executive positions in the Civil Aviation Authority and airport enterprises in Ethiopia. He has also served as Air Transport Director in the Civil Aviation Authority of Botswana. He's mainly responsible for coordinating and monitoring the effective implementation of the Comprehensive Regional Implementation Plan for Aviation Safety in Africa. We'll be making this presentation, and Eyo, I now hand over the floor to you.
Thank you, Maureen, for the introduction. First of all, I would like to say to all my fellow Kenyan brothers and sisters, a happy Mashujaa Day. Today is a public holiday here in Kenya. I'm based in Nairobi. As Maureen mentioned, I work for ICAO, ISAF. I will give you a brief background related to ICAO NGAP program. Who are the key stakeholders, why NGAP, why we initiated NGAP program. There is a gap. We'll try to see how the current and the future gap looks like in terms of human resource in aviation, and the strategy and best practices, and then finally the way forward. As mentioned by my former boss, Mr. Gwaso Konate, and my colleague yesterday, this is one of the key programs of ICAO developed in collaboration with the industry. The NGAP initiative was launched in 2019 to help ensure enough qualified and competent aviation professionals are available to operate, manage, maintain the future international air transport system. So as you see here, the key adjectives are qualified and competent, and as well as enough. We can see that in the future there will be a gap. For that, we have to produce enough. We have to come up with enough human resource, and those must be qualified and competent to support the industry. So together with the industry, there was a vision developed for that. That's a global aviation community that has sufficient competent human resource to support a safe, secure, and sustainable air transport system. And there is a mission to achieve towards that. That is to develop strategies, best practices, tools, standards, and guidance as applicable, and to facilitate information sharing activities that assist the global aviation community, attracting, educating, retaining the next generation of aviation professionals. Next slide. Next slide, please. So as I indicated earlier, that there are key stakeholders in this program. Governments in terms of policies, procedures, regulations. There is an industry who is operating aircrafters, that is airlines and navigation service providers who provide air traffic services, and the airporters who provide airport services. And there are manufacturers who manufacture air navigation equipment, aircrafters, helicopters, all that provide us air transport service, commercial air transport services. And the training providers, those are ATOs all over the world, and universities and others. So From the regulation side, there is government. We are closely working with ICAO. From the service side, which is, those who are providing and demanding the human resource, airline, air navigation providers and airports and manufacturers. From the supply side of the human resource, there are training providers in the universities. So AATOs and universities are producing human resources. The industry is taking those human resources, and the government and ICAO are supporting and facilitating. Being as a platform, we facilitate, and government has made a regulation. Next slide. So why are the key factors that necessitate NGAP? Why we need this initiative? Because growth of aviation sector. Aviation is growing significantly. I hope most of you know that the statistic shows that aviation doubles every 15 years. So there is also an aging profession, an aging professionals in this sector. So there is a retirees. It's competition with tech sector for skilled people. Of course, aviation is not like 70s and 80s, the most attractive and lucrative profession. There are other professions that now are competing with aviation. The new technology driven businesses are competing, very skilled human resource, attractive of aviation careers, and the training capacity. The affordability is the other issue. And awareness of aviation carriers, especially in developing countries. We need to create, and promote the awareness of the aviation as it is. It has to be widely, then you need to widen the awareness across the community. So those are the key factors that drives the NGAP. Next slide. This is 3 years back. This shows that what it looks like. This is a summary. If you look for details, I will give you the links that you can go and see the details of those statistics. In terms of commercial pilot demand, as you see that between 2017 to 2037, within 20 years, how many people are going out of the industry, which is nearly more than half of the pilots are going to retire in the coming 20 years. But we need also, around 554,000 commercial pilots in the industry to sustain the growth that I mentioned earlier. The air traffic controllers, as you see, it is the same. We need more than 100,000 air traffic controllers in the industry all over the world. Next slide. This is for maintenance and cabin crew. The industry grows, and there is also people are leaving the industry because of retirement. We can see that we need a lot of people to join the industry. Combined, the air traffic controllers around 450,000, more than 450,000. Cabin crew more than 923,000 in the coming 20 years has to join roughly to run the industry smoothly. So this is a global one. As I mentioned earlier, you can go and see the details. This varies across regions. Of course, in this regard, Asia Pacific is the leading region in terms of requiring human resource in aviation, because the growth of Asia Pacific is higher than the rest of the region. Africa, of course, even if the growth rate is reasonably high, because the current base is low, we are still in the lowest area in terms of requiring a human resource but still, in terms of, if you see the growth rate, Africa is in a commendable situation. Next slide. So the demand forecast for global and regional commercial pilot, air traffic controllers, transaction cabin crew indicators Despite the different growth rate, the demand for the new personnel across region is high. Hence, globally, it means it is high. The gap exists between available training capacity and demand is fast-growing markets, and introduce new technologies and education delivery method based on industry to best practices. So you can, I put the link there, ICAO personnel forecast application for each country, the industry, and at the same time for regions. You can visit that site, or you can go to NGAP, ICAO NGAP website and try to see some of the presentation related to that. Because this one is, you need to get a subscription for this to access this link. Otherwise, the data are available. You can plan for each country, for each region. I will subscribe the industry, and other stakeholders can visit those websites. Next. Why appropriate policy interventions are essential? As I mentioned earlier, aviation is going to double in the next 15 years, every 15 years. And when we see the bigger picture, as the previous speaker, Mr. Guaso, indicated, that is an aviation, is a driven demand. It serves the bigger picture. It creates job, it creates trade, it transports people from tourism, so it increases GDP. So it is really important in terms of contribution to each and every state in the world, and globally and regional as well. So there is a flagship a project led by AU in Africa in that regard. We need to focus on those areas just to appreciate the significance of aviation, some impact because of COVID. I can see that airports, in terms of airports, an estimated loss of approximately 64.6% of passenger traffic and 66.3% over the USD, 125 billion airports revenue loss in 2020 compared to business as usual. So this is only in 1 year. What global airports are losing is around 125 billion USD just because of COVID. So airlines as well, you can see the statistics. Tourism loses around $1.3 trillion in 2020 compared to the USD 1.5 trillion generated in 2009. In terms of trade, also a failing global merchandise trade volume, which is 5.3% volume in 2020 compared to 2019. These all have an impact on the airline, which means that an impact on the economy in terms of employment, in terms of GDP, in terms of trade, and ultimately it has an impact on the economy of the nation. So aviation is really significant for all those reasons. So we need to have an innovative, efficient, and adequate personnel to run the industry in the coming years. The other reason is that you need to maintain the supply chain, which I mentioned, the trade. Coordinate plan of governments, industry, manufacturers, trading providers, higher education providers will lead to best result for least cost, affordable human resource development. So there must be a coordinated effect, collaboration in that regard. So why we need the bigger picture is the country's economy or regional or global economy. It has a significant impact. Aviation is really essential. Next slide. So what are the best strategies and practices should be? One, we all recommend that the recommendation of the council and the assembly resolution is related to the all recommendation has to be a data-driven and information-driven approach. Will assist to mobilize resources and draw the attention of policy and decision makers. So that collaboration globally pulls a resource from various industry and financial institutions, governments. So we need to come up, especially related to regional approaches recommended. In that regard, in Africa, we developed African Aviation Training Roadmap. That is related to training how Africa has to catch up with the rest of the world and at the same time meet the demand of the industry in the coming years. There is a study also now currently financed and run in a project in a program that I'm supporting under the AFI plan, enhancement of aviation professionals in Africa. This also, we need to see the existing gaps in Africa, in the industry, in the regulatory areas, especially related to the 5 strategic objectives of ICAO, what Africa looks like and what numbers of professionals and qualified professionals are required in the coming years. This is a study which is going to be undertaken currently, and hopefully it's going to be finalized by end of this month. And next month we're going to have a workshop. Maybe we can invite some of colleagues in industry to attend to that workshop. Promote the available existing and future careers in aviation. Many activities during the 75th anniversary of ICAO, we encourage young professionals, to come up with a competition in aircraft design worldwide. I know some from Africa, especially, and I think from Kenya also, they get a prize in that competition. We closely work with young aviation associations, which are based in Africa. Engaging young professionals like ICAO Global Innovation Symposium. Also, we engage some universities, young professionals, to engage in the Aviation Innovation Symposium, which was held last year in December. Optimum training cost affordability, that is one of the strategy. Cost must be affordable. And we need to come up an innovative idea on how to tackle the demand for this activity. Engage a wide array of stakeholders. Of course, the collaboration has to be there, which I mentioned earlier. And flexible, adaptable action plan. One fits for all action plan cannot work everywhere, because in different regions, in different states, we have different kinds of problems, different kinds of situation to be addressed. So, for instance, what I observed in the last couple of years, when we discuss with AATO and the aviation training organizations and the young aviation professionals associations, my observation is that mentorship and internship is really important, because I've seen that in some African countries, there are pilots who are already trained, young pilots, but still they couldn't able to get a job because of, the industry requires a certain amount of time to fly. And the same is true for technicians and others also. So there must be a synergy and a collaboration among the industry, the training organizations, the government, the policymakers, and have an action plan tailored for specific, countries or regions. Next. So the way forward is, as I mentioned earlier, it is collaboration among states, industry, and academia. Enhance the effort to harmonize and stabilize the quality of aviation professional access decision. This is in ICAO. In terms of ICAO, we have got global aviation training. You can it's a Google away, as you can say, ICAO GAT. You can go and see what kind of trainings are provided through GAT. GAT has been provided for, a discount, especially for women's, as my colleague yesterday mentioned. And also we provide through the program that I'm supporting, we provide trainings for least developed countries, including in Africa, in this year and the coming years as well. We have also an Association of African Aviation Training Organization. We need to strengthen that. I think the aviation training organization has to be strengthened and come up with a policy and to implement the roadmap, the African Aviation Training Roadmap, which is already developed with the support of ICAO. So finally, strengthening regional institutional capacity is one of the way forward. I'm back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayob, for sharing with us the information regarding the NGAP, what it's all about, and what is currently going on, recommendations for the way forward. We have a question, just one question we'll pick from the floor for you. Looking at the impact of COVID that has changed the landscape. We're not having any decision making with previous data because airlines have been affected, the traffic has changed. We know that traffic will come back, the forecast for the traffic growth will come back. But looking at NGAP, what is the situation on the ground regarding your ongoing activities? How has COVID impacted this, and what are your forecasts on training needs that you will be meeting to close these gaps, the need gap, because we have very many aviation professionals who have been laid off and redundant?
Well, in terms of training, I think especially, yes, the industry is in a very, very difficult situation for over a couple of years. Last year, since March 2019, we are in a difficult situation. But this industry is a very resilient industry. It will come up again, and the growth trend will be significantly high in the coming years. But in terms of training, I think we need more training now than the previous cases, because now the situation has changed, of course, but people need to have, even those who are coming back, have to be refreshed. And we come up with different kinds of, support in ICAO to train, various regulatory activities through different mechanisms. Of course, we have to adapt to the situation, and this situation is that an online training. In most cases, there are virtual trainings, online trainings. How we come up from this situation, that we restart aviation, and at the same time, how we're going to grow up. So there is different trainings. If you visit the GAT, the ICAO Global Aviation Training website, I suggest, there are many trainings related to how to restart and recover aviation in that regard. In terms of the future of aviation, yes, it is not gloomy. It is bright, and it requires more trainings. Of course, the trend is going to continue. We are not going to stay indoor or within the countries for a long period of time. Trade is going to restart. People have to travel. Tourism is recovering. So we are going to have a demand more personnel in the future. So the forecast is that in the coming, even if definitely I can give you right now, but we can safely say that the future is bright for young generations, and there is a gap in the industry to be addressed through training. Back to you, Maureen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayob, for ably responding to our question. And this brings us to the close of your session. Ladies and gentlemen, join us for the next session, which is an executive interview with a beneficiary of Collins Aerospace Initiative of Youth and Development, which will be starting in the next couple of minutes. Please, to join this session, go back to your event platform and select on the executive interview with Collins Aerospace, Erin Michelle. See you at the next session. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Maureen.
Bye.
Bye, colleagues.